The first person who warned Daniel about her wasn't a stranger. It was her own best friend. The second warning came from her ex, then her sister, then another friend. Daniel ignored every single one of them, because the woman they described wasn't the woman he knew. At least that's what he thought. 2 years later he would discover a chilling truth. Everyone had tried to warn him, and every warning was right. Have you ever met someone who seemed impossible to leave? Not because they made you happy, not because the relationship was healthy, but because every time you thought about walking away you felt guilty. Today we're talking about a type of emotional trap millions of people fall into without realizing it. A trap that starts with compassion, then becomes obligation, then becomes exhaustion, and finally becomes a life you barely recognize. This is Daniel's story, but parts of it may sound surprisingly familiar. The first time Daniel met Ava, she was sitting alone at a mutual friend's birthday party. She wasn't trying to be the center of attention, at least not openly. She looked distant, quiet, like someone carrying invisible weight. Naturally, people were curious. Daniel was too. When they started talking, she seemed incredibly genuine. Within an hour, she had told him pieces of her story. Her difficult childhood, her absent father, the friends who betrayed her, the relationships that ended badly, the opportunities she never got. Daniel felt sorry for her. Most people would. Humans are wired to respond to pain. When someone shares vulnerability, we feel connected. That's normal. But something else happened. As the night went on, Daniel noticed he wanted her approval. He wanted to make her smile. He wanted to prove he wasn't like everyone else. And that was the beginning. Not love. Not attraction. Investment. Psychologically speaking, people value what they invest in. Time, energy, attention, emotion. The more we invest, the harder it becomes to walk away, even when we should. Ava seemed grateful whenever Daniel helped, then distant, then grateful again, then distant again. It created uncertainty, and uncertainty is powerful. Casinos know this. Social media platforms know this. People sometimes use it without realizing. The human brain becomes obsessed with unpredictable rewards. If someone is nice all the time, we appreciate them. If someone is nice only sometimes, we start chasing their approval. Daniel didn't know it yet, but he was already chasing. A few months later they started dating. His friends were happy for him. First, because in the beginning everything looked perfect. Ava was affectionate, funny, passionate, intense. She made Daniel feel special, like he was the only person who truly understood her. And that's another psychological trigger many people miss. When someone makes you feel uniquely important, you become emotionally attached faster. You stop evaluating. You start believing. You stop observing. You start defending. Before long, Daniel wasn't just dating Ava. He was building his identity around being her protector. And that would cost him more than he imagined. Or maybe they did. The first warning sign appeared 6 months into the relationship. One of Ava's closest friends suddenly disappeared. At least that's how it seemed. Daniel asked what happened. Ava sighed, then explained. Her friend was toxic, manipulative, jealous, selfish. Daniel believed her. Why wouldn't he? Then another friendship ended. Different person. Same explanation. Then another. Then another. Over time Daniel heard dozens of stories. Coworkers who wronged her. Friends who betrayed her. Relatives who disappointed her. Ex-boyfriends who damaged her. Everyone seemed to hurt Ava. Everyone. Think about that for a second. Have you ever noticed how some people are surrounded by constant conflict? Different faces. Different situations. Same outcome. At some point, an uncomfortable question appears. What if the problem isn't everyone else? Most people never ask that question, because by then they're emotionally invested. Daniel certainly didn't ask it. Not yet. Instead, he became even more protective. Whenever someone disagreed with Ava, he defended her. Whenever someone left her life, he blamed them. Whenever drama appeared, he rushed to support her. And that's when his own relationship started changing. His friends became distant. His family seemed concerned. People who genuinely cared about him started asking uncomfortable questions. Daniel hated those questions, because they forced him to consider possibilities he didn't want to face. One evening his older brother said something simple. "Have you noticed that every story has the same ending?" Daniel immediately got defensive. But later that night he couldn't stop thinking about it. Every story did have the same ending. Someone left. Someone became the villain. Someone disappointed Ava. Every time. Yet he ignored the thought, because accepting it would mean questioning everything. And humans hate questioning emotional investments. The more we sacrifice for something, the harder it becomes to admit we made a mistake. Psychologists call this the sunk cost effect. Most people call it staying too long. The change happened slowly. So slowly Daniel barely noticed. At first he stopped seeing friends as often. Then family gatherings became stressful. Then hobbies disappeared. Then personal goals got postponed. Every decision revolved around Ava. If she was upset, plans changed. If she was anxious, priorities changed. If she was unhappy, everything changed. One night Daniel sat alone in his apartment while Ava was sleeping. Something felt strange. He couldn't remember the last time he'd done something purely for himself. Not because Ava demanded control. Because her emotions controlled everything. There's a difference. Many destructive relationships aren't built on obvious rules. They're built on emotional consequences. Nobody says you're forbidden from seeing friends. You just know there will be conflict afterward. Nobody says you can't enjoy yourself. You just know someone will become upset. Eventually you stop making choices freely. You start making choices predictably. Without realizing it, Daniel's world became smaller and smaller. And here's the scary part. People adapt to almost anything. Even unhealthy situations. Especially unhealthy situations. What feels shocking on day 1 feels normal by day 300. That's why emotional traps are so difficult to recognize. They don't arrive all at once. They arrive one compromise at a time. One canceled plan. One missed opportunity. One uncomfortable conversation avoided. One personal dream postponed. Until eventually you're living a life you never intended to create. Daniel looked around and realized something frightening. His entire existence revolved around preventing Ava from becoming upset. And despite all his effort, she was still upset. Then came the moment Daniel couldn't ignore. A former friend of Ava's reached out. Not to attack her. Not to insult her. Not to create drama. Just to talk. At first Daniel refused. He believed Ava's version of events. But curiosity won. And what he heard shocked him. The stories weren't matching. Not even close. The friend described situations Daniel had heard about before. Except the details were completely different. People hadn't abandoned Ava for no reason. Many had left because they were exhausted. They felt manipulated. Drained. Emotionally overwhelmed. The more Daniel listened, the more uncomfortable he became. Because pieces started fitting together. Conversations. Arguments. Patterns. Behaviors. For the first time he wasn't looking at isolated incidents. He was looking at the entire picture. And the picture was disturbing. Not because Ava was evil. She wasn't. Not because she wanted to destroy people. She didn't. The truth was more complicated. Ava lived in a cycle. She constantly needed validation. Constantly needed reassurance. Constantly needed someone to rescue her emotionally. And no amount was ever enough. It wasn't malicious. It was endless. That realization changed everything. Because Daniel finally understood something. You can drown trying to save someone who refuses to learn how to swim. Not because they're bad. Because the situation itself is unsustainable. For years he believed love meant sacrifice. Now he was discovering that endless sacrifice isn't love. It's erosion. Slow erosion. The kind that happens so gradually you don't notice until huge pieces of yourself are gone. The hardest conversation Daniel ever had wasn't with Ava. It was with himself. He had to admit uncomfortable truths. He wasn't staying because things were good. He was staying because he hoped things would become good. He wasn't helping anymore. He was enabling. He wasn't protecting the relationship. He was protecting an illusion. And that's a painful realization. Because hope can keep people trapped longer than fear. We tell ourselves things will improve. Things will change. Things will get better. Sometimes they do. But sometimes hope becomes a prison. Daniel began rebuilding boundaries. First it felt selfish, then uncomfortable, then necessary. He reconnected with friends, spent time with family, returned to hobbies, focused on goals. For the first time in years, he stopped managing everyone else's emotions and started taking responsibility for his own. Something surprising happened. His anxiety decreased. His confidence returned. His energy improved. The constant emotional exhaustion began fading. Not overnight, but steadily. That's when he learned one of life's most valuable lessons. Your compassion is valuable, but it needs boundaries. Without boundaries, compassion becomes self-destruction. Without boundaries, kindness becomes exploitation. Without boundaries, love becomes sacrifice without end. Healthy relationships require support, not rescue. Partnership, not dependency. Accountability, not endless excuses. The people who truly care about you don't require you to lose yourself in order to keep them. They want you to thrive too. So here's the question. Have you ever stayed in a situation longer than you should have because you felt responsible for someone else's happiness? If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. And remember this: you can love someone deeply and still recognize when a relationship is costing you your peace. You can care without caring. You can support without sacrificing yourself. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do isn't saving someone else. It's finally saving themselves. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and turn on notifications for more powerful real-life lessons about relationships, psychology, and personal growth. Because the most dangerous traps in life rarely look dangerous at the beginning.